The iPhone 8 might not be called the iPhone 8 anymore, or even the iPhone X. It might be called instead the iPhone Edition. So hey everyone, welcome to the ZONEofTECH. I'm Daniel, and in this video I want to talk about all the latest leaks and rumors in terms of the iPhone 8 and also in terms of the iPhone 7s. So everything from the new naming scheme to the new release date, which might be delayed by the way for the iPhone 8, the new 3D camera, wireless charging, the new display, and so much more. So yeah, enjoy. Okay, so a pretty weird thing happened earlier this week. So Mako Takara, you've probably heard of Mako Takara before. I've mentioned them in my previous videos. So Mako Takara is one of the most trusted sources when it comes to Apple leaks in general, and one of the main sources when it comes to iPhone 8 leaks. So they said that the iPhone 8 is not going to be called the iPhone 8 anymore, and instead it's going to be called the iPhone Edition. Yeah, pretty weird. So it would be called the iPhone Edition, basically to match the naming scheme of the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch, we have the Apple Watch Edition, which up until 2016 was the golden Apple Watch, and then in late 2016 with the Apple Watch Series 2, we got the ceramic version of the Apple Watch Edition. So yeah, the iPhone 8 being called the iPhone Edition would be pretty weird, especially since, well, the iPhone 8 would make so much more sense, and then the iPhone X would make even more sense because, well, X is the Roman number for 10, and the iPhone is actually turning 10 years, actually it did turn already 10 years this year in 2017. So by calling it the iPhone X, Apple will be able to restart the naming scheme with the iPhone X1 and then X2 next year, and maybe X3 next year, and so on. So what do you guys think about all this? What do you guys think about the iPhone 8 being called the iPhone Edition? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Or do you think the iPhone X would be an even better idea? I mean, the only logical reason as to why the iPhone 8 might be called the iPhone Edition would be that really premium price point. So you've probably heard of before that the iPhone 8 will be priced at around $1,000, even more. Yeah, which would be pretty unfortunate. And speaking of this really premium price point, Mako Takara has confirmed this in this report as well. The iPhone 8 or the iPhone Edition would cost $1,000 or more. But then I also said something pretty interesting when it comes to the iPhone 8 or the iPhone Edition and this premium price point. So apparently it's not going to come in 256 gigabytes of storage, the baseline model, as I previously believed. At this price point, instead, the baseline would be 64, and then you would have another option for 256. So yeah, 64 and 256 gigabytes would be the options for the iPhone 8 or the iPhone Edition, which would be a pretty bad choice for consumers because I personally have the mid-range option of the iPhone 7 Plus, so the 128 gigabytes version of the iPhone 7 Plus, and people like myself who have this version would have to upgrade to the 256 gigabytes option just because the 64 one wouldn't be enough for all of our files. So yeah, this is basically Apple's way of making you pay even more than that really premium $1,000 price point for the iPhone 8. Now, usually storage upgrades have been around $100 or £80, now actually £100 in UK as well, for each upgrade step in the iPhone. For the iPhone 8, these might actually be even higher at $150 or even $200. So I expect to pay around $1,300 or around, £1,300 because the pricing is almost 1-to-1 in the UK now. For the iPhone 8, for the 256 gigabyte option for the iPhone 8. Yeah, that's almost the price of a 13-inch baseline MacBook Pro. Would you actually pay that much for an iPhone 8? That's the big question. How many units will Apple actually sell because of this really high price point? Now, also according to Mako Takara, Apple's actually testing different models, different versions for the iPhone 8. So apparently some of them still come with an LCD display instead of an OLED display, and some of them still come with a home button. Now, Apple's most likely going to go with an OLED display for the iPhone 8 and with no home button, as we've seen reported so many times now. But yeah, basically Apple's not sure which will be the final version of the iPhone 8, and this is mostly because of the materials involved in the iPhone 8. So Apple's actually testing ceramic models for the iPhone 8 instead of glass models. They're also testing models with a stainless steel frame, similar to what we have on the Apple Watch. Again, that would justify that really premium price point, and same would go for a ceramic iPhone. But yeah, basically the main reason why Apple's testing so many variants of the iPhone 8 is because they're not exactly sure which version they'll be able to produce the most. And here's the thing when it comes to designing and making a phone. The designing team, they can actually make the best looking phone on the planet, but then the engineering team will come and they'll say, oh wait, we cannot actually do this until, I don't know, next year or 2 years from today. So the designing team and the engineering team, they'll come to an agreement as to how the next phone will look like, but then the CEO and the board will also intervene, and they'll tell them that, hey, we need to sell at least 100 million phones next year, and we cannot actually produce enough, let's say, wireless charging units for those phones. So we'll have to remove that component and maybe add it next year, and so on. So that's basically how a phone is made. Overall, the best option when it comes to the design, when it comes to engineering, and when it comes to selling as many units is chosen. That's the long story short as to how a device is manufactured and sold, unfortunately. Then also an LCD iPhone 8 with a home button, even if it's actually going to be made out of full ceramic, for example, it's not going to sell that well if it's actually going to be priced at this price point. So yeah, definitely expect an OLED iPhone 8 with no home button at all. Also, remember when I said that the iPhone 8 is actually going to come with not one, but actually two motherboards or logic boards stacked on top of one another and then linked by a connection cable. So this would allow for not just more room inside the phone for a larger battery, an L-shaped battery, but also the iPhone 8, by having this stacked motherboard design, would also be much smaller in terms of the size than the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7s. So Mako Takara has confirmed the size of the iPhone 8 once again. So it's going to come with a 5.8 inches display. However, in terms of the size, it's actually going to be very similar to the 4.7 inch iPhone 7 and not the iPhone 7 Plus. So it's going to be really small when compared to the iPhone 7 Plus, but yeah, it is going to come with a 5.8 inches display. Now, when it comes to the actual usable area of the display, it's not going to be unfortunately 5.8 inches or 5.5 inches, it's still going to be about 5 to 5.1 inches. And that's because the bottom area of the display would actually hold a function bar. So similar to what we have on the new MacBook Pros, you would actually have a bar, a dedicated section of the display for different controls. And apparently this is going to be very different from the on-screen buttons that we have on so many Android smartphones. So it's not going to come with a home button, back button, and multitasking button. Instead, you'll have the home button there all the time, and then you would have different controls for every single app that you use. So multitasking would still work by double tapping on that virtual home button. However, you would get extra buttons, extra functionality for each app. So these are a few concepts posted by Mac Rumors, and they show how this function bar would work. So for example, in Twitter, you would have start a new tweet or tweet someone. In Instagram, you would have something like messages and post any photos. Now this would look a bit weird on the home screen, at least from the concept. So I do see Apple either moving the app drawer on the bottom or simply adding some additional functionality on the home screen as well. Otherwise, it is going to look pretty weird with all this empty space here. And since the iPhone 8 is going to come with an OLED display, also expect some sort of always on display. So something like we have on the Samsung Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge, an always on display that always shows your time and your notifications even when the display is off. This is one of my favorite features actually on the S7 Edge. And yeah, since this is an OLED display, the always on display has a really low impact on the battery life. The iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus will most likely not come with an always on display, and that's because the iPhone 7s's will still come with an LCD display, and you cannot actually have this an always on display on an LCD display. And that's because on LCD displays the pixels provide only the color and then you need a backlight, so even if you want to show just the black color, you always have to light up those pixels because of the backlight, whereas on all the displays the pixels provide both the color and the brightness. So that's why they're more power efficient than LCDs, because you can only have just a few pixels lit up on the display, whereas on LCD displays you need to light up everything. LG, by the way, still uses an LCD display on the LG G5 and the G6, and they also have an always on display, but yeah, it's not as power efficient as an OLED display. So yeah, the usable on-screen area of the iPhone 8 would be 5 inches to 5.1 inches, that's if you don't count the touch bar area, which is going to be pretty weird. I mean, going back from an iPhone 7 Plus, which comes with a 5.5 inch display, not even to mention those really large bezels, going back to an iPhone 7 basically size with a 5.8 inches display, which might only be 5.1 inches without that touch bar area. Now, I do expect that touch bar to go away when you're watching videos or playing different games, similar to what we have on Android with those on-screen buttons going away when you're watching a video or when you're playing a different game. So I do expect that touch bar to be hideable when needed. Now the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus are most likely going to happen as well. In fact, we've actually had some new reports suggesting just this. So Nikkei and also the Wall Street Journal have said that the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus will launch alongside the iPhone 8. The iPhone 8 would come with that brand new design, wireless charging, and an OLED display, whereas the iPhone 7s would come with basically the same design as the iPhone 7, the 6s, and the iPhone 6, with only some minor performance improvements and camera updates, and that's pretty much it. Maybe even a new color, a red option, a red version of the iPhone 7s, but yeah, that's basically it. Now when it comes to the Touch ID sensor, as you all probably know, it's going to be integrated into the display assembly on the iPhone 8. Now speaking of this, we actually have a couple of new patents from Apple just showing this, a Touch ID sensor built into the display assembly. And then a few days ago, DigiTimes has reported that Apple is working on implementing a new 65nm based process for the new second generation Touch ID sensor, actually the third generation Touch ID sensor for the iPhone 8. He also said that apparently Apple's having some production issues when it comes to manufacturing enough Touch ID sensors for the iPhone 8. So the iPhone 8 might even be delayed. And more about that in a few moments. Then we actually had some pretty big updates when it comes to the cameras on the iPhone 8. So iGenerations reported that ST Microelectronics will be manufacturing a 3D camera sensor for the iPhone 8. So I mentioned in my previous videos that Apple has quite a number of patents when it comes to AR, so augmented reality, when it comes to 3D scanning and 3D object recognition. Well, Apple has actually applied for more patents when it comes to 3D objects and 3D face recognition just this week. So many sources pointing towards this 3D camera on the iPhone 8. So this is most likely going to happen, a 3D front-facing camera on the iPhone 8. So this will be able to recognize not just your face, but also everything behind you. So you would be able to use your face in games. You would be able to maybe even take 3D selfies. And so many apps would be able to take advantage of that 3D front-facing camera and use your 3D scanned face. That would be pretty interesting, a pretty interesting feature to have. Now, PrimeSense Technologies is a company that did a lot of work when it comes to 3D scanning and AR. And Apple has actually bought PrimeSense back in 2013, so yeah, 4 years ago. And PrimeSense Technologies, they also had quite a number of patents on just this AR and 3D object recognition. And KGI also gave us a few details on how that front-facing camera, that 3D front-facing camera on the iPhone 8 would work like. So basically you would have an infrared receiver and an infrared transmitter. And the transmitter would basically send infrared rays towards your face, and then the receiver would catch those rays. And based on the time it took for the receiver to catch those rays, it would know what 3D feature of your face it has detected. So basically that's how it would work. Also, do expect to see some 3D imaging capabilities on the back-facing camera as well, not just on the front-facing camera. I do expect the back-facing camera to be able to capture the environment that you see, your surroundings, in 3D as well. Especially since the iPhone 8 or the iPhone edition would still come with that dual camera module that we have on the iPhone 7 Plus at the moment. iGeneration also reports that because of this 3D camera on the iPhone 8 and also because of the new Touch ID sensor, the iPhone 8 will be delayed. So the launch of the iPhone 8 might be delayed a few months after September, which is when the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus will launch, but the iPhone 8 might even be delayed until early 2018. Hopefully it will launch until by December, but yeah, it might even be delayed until 2018. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this delay. Will you be picking up an iPhone 7s if the iPhone 8 is going to be delayed, or will you be waiting for the iPhone 8 in, I don't know, January or December, whenever it's going to be released? Now, the pre-orders of the iPhone 8 might still start in September, so you might be able to pre-order an iPhone 8 for January or December, whenever it's released. But yeah, we'll probably have more updates when it comes to the release date in the next few weeks as Apple ramps up the production. Now, there are a few new leaks about the iPhone 8 that I want to mention that I haven't talked about in my iPhone 8 USB-C Everything You Need to Know video. So basically, Ming-Chi Kuo from KGI reported that the iPhone 8 would come with a USB-C to USB-C to Lightning cable, and then it would come with a USB-C adapter. So this would basically give the iPhone 8 fast charging capabilities, so USB-C power delivery. However, in Europe, it would actually come with a USB-C to USB-C cable, and then on the iPhone, you would get a separate adapter, Lightning to USB-C, because in Europe, the European Union wants to have a universal charger for all phones. That would be USB-C, so this might actually happen in Europe. But yeah, USB-C fast charging or USB-C power delivery would still work. So again, we have this on the iPad Pro 12.9 inches. If you use a USB-C adapter and a USB-C cable, it would actually charge much faster than with the included cable. Now, a few more details about the iPhone 8. So a research firm in China called Transforce, they actually reported that the iPhone 8 won't come with anything more than 3 GB of RAM. So you would still have 3 GB of RAM, the same amount of RAM as you currently have on the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, this is a bit interesting and unexpected because Apple usually increases the amount of RAM with every single S model update of the iPhone. So with the iPhone 7s, we would expect to get 3 GB of RAM on both the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus. And then with this iPhone 8, you would expect about 4. However, iOS has some amazing RAM management. So I've actually done a few videos, you've probably seen some of them. My ultimate performance test between the iPhone 6s, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 7 Plus, the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, the OnePlus 2, and so on. And in those videos, I compared RAM management and multiple things between those phones. And basically an iPhone 6s with only 2GB of RAM and even the iPhone 7 managed to heavily outperform the S7 Edge and the OnePlus 2, both of which come with 4GB of RAM. So those phones with 2GB managed to keep a lot of apps open in the background, whereas the S7 Edge and the OnePlus 2, well, they basically struggled with more than 5 really demanding apps. And then TrendForce also reported the iPhone 8 won't come with a 3D display anymore. So we've seen this reported quite a number of times recently, that the iPhone 8 won't come with a curved display anymore. Instead, it would come with a 2.5D glass. So basically the same thing that we have on the iPhone 7, 6s, and 6. So that glass is still slightly curved around the edges so that you can slide from right to left easier. But yeah, it's not curved completely like something we have on the Samsung Galaxy 7 Edge. Now, apparently the reasons for this is that one, Apple is actually having some production issues with those 3D display panels, and then two is that, well, 3D display panels or curved display panels are much more suitable to shatter when dropped. Let me know in the comments, by the way, if you prefer having a 3D display or a curved display or a 2.5D display, so like we have on the iPhone 7, 6s, and the iPhone 6. Now, personally, design-wise, I do prefer how a curved display looks like, so the S7 Edge simply looks amazing. However, the S7 Edge has some horrible accidental touch rejection, so when you hold it by the edges, a lot of the times the phone acts like crazy. I don't think this is actually going to be the case with the iPhones because, for example, the iPad mini has some amazing touch rejection, but yeah, still, when you're watching a video, the image is a bit distorted. So yeah, functionality-wise, I do prefer a flat display. However, design-wise, I do prefer a curved display. Finally, the Bell has reported via supply source in China that Apple is planning to switch to full OLED displays on the iPhones by 2019, which is a pretty interesting report since, well, if the iPhone 8 is going to come with an OLED display this year, I would have expected the iPhone 7s, so to say, to switch to an OLED display next year in 2018. Apparently, that's not going to be the case. All iPhones will only switch to full OLED displays in 2019. But yeah, what do you guys think about everything? What do you guys think about all this? Would you prefer a curved display on the iPhone 8 or a flat display? And would you prefer an OLED display or an LCD? Or do you simply not care if the iPhone 8 is going to come with an OLED display or an LCD display? Would you be getting an iPhone 7s in 2017, or would you be waiting a few months for the iPhone 8, which, keep in mind, is going to be pretty expensive? If you have enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe for more Leaks and Rumors episodes like this one. Feel free to check out my previous episodes on the iPhone 8 and also on the Samsung Galaxy S8. Yeah, the Samsung Galaxy S8 is going to be a really interesting smartphone. It's actually coming out, well, it's actually being announced later on this month. And it's going to be really similar to the iPhone 8, at least design-wise. So really thin bezels. Also be sure to enable notifications on my channel on both desktop and mobile by simply clicking on the bell icon next to my channel, and you will be notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. There's still quite a few issues with the subscription feed, so by having notifications enabled, that's the best way to know when a new video has been released. Feel free to give this video a like if you have enjoyed it, to let me know. And yeah, this was pretty much it for this video, so thank you for watching this video, and let me know in the comments if you're epic enough to make it until the end. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.